Free from Addiction, Real-Life Stories of Former Addicts from the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends. Drug Addiction, A Family Drama Turns to Good. Part 1. Page 11 of the book, which may be obtained by going to the Bruno Gröning Circle of Friends website, where you'll be able to order it through a voluntary contribution. Mrs. L.R. Drug Addiction, A Family Drama Turns to Good. During my childhood, there was aggression, fear, and sadness at home. Instead of protection, harmony, and tenderness, my father was burdened with alcohol and drug use. My mother was stressed because of my father, and I was stuck in the middle. At the age of 10, I started to puff on cigarettes with a girlfriend, and when I was 12, I started inhaling them. By the time I was 13, I was off to my first parties, and I drank alcohol to fit in. Because it was normal at home, I joined in the drinking and drank as much as possible. At the age of 15, I started smoking marijuana. Around about this time, my parents got divorced. I stayed with my father since I didn't want to change schools or lose my friends. From the time when I was 16 onwards, I gradually started taking other drugs: LSD, speed, hallucinogenic mushrooms, laughing gas, cocaine, and MDMA, ecstasy. It soon became normal for me to be at parties on the weekends under the influence of drugs and not to sleep for 1 or 2 nights. When I was 17 years old and had finished secondary school, I moved in with my mom and her partner, since my father was no longer able to look after me. Because my parents had never set any boundaries for me while I was growing up, living with my mother and her partner wasn't very harmonious, and so I moved into my own apartment when I was 18. My father visited me there once. At that time, he was really down because of massive drug use. He had no money and had lost his job and his apartment as well. This meeting caused me to break off contact with him for a time, because it was too hard for me to see him like that and not to be able to help him. I was doing a lot of drugs myself. Smoking dope had long since become an addiction. I had such severe depression that I started psychotherapy, which took about 2 years. The doctor prescribed diazepam, Valium, to calm me down when things got tough. Unfortunately, the therapy didn't really help. When I tried to stop smoking dope, I suffered from withdrawal symptoms like sweating, insomnia, restlessness, nausea, and lack of appetite. Nothing else mattered then, because my thoughts all revolved around having another joint. I could never withstand the pressure the addiction put on me for more than a couple of days, because I couldn't handle the withdrawal symptoms. Contact with my mom was fairly good because she supported me a lot, especially financially, but it wasn't really a warm connection. Neither she nor I was able to show our love for the other, since neither of us had learned how, and both of us had our baggage. When I moved to another city at age of 21, my drug consumption didn't change. I smoked dope from morning to night, but I still went to work. On the weekend, I took whatever drugs I could get. and drank a lot of alcohol. I wasn't able to change anything. A couple of months later, at the beginning of 2001, I met a healing practitioner, and my spiritual interest was awakened. The healing practitioner, who became a friend of mine, had been introduced to the teaching of Bruno Gröning in 2004. She had started to do Einstellung for me without my knowledge. At that time, my consumption of party drugs decreased until I finally lost interest in them. I still smoked dope, though from morning to night, even while I was working. At the beginning of 2004, the healing practitioner went with me to see my father. He was still unemployed and had been in a methadone program for a couple of years. Again, I couldn't stay in contact with him. It was simply too much for me. Every once in a while, I heard from him via text messages or through my grandma. At the beginning of 2005, the healing practitioner also told me about Bruno Gröning. And in November of 2005, I was introduced to the teaching of Bruno Gröning. I made an effort to do Einstellung regularly, but went to the community hours irregularly. On New Year's Eve 2006, I took ecstasy with friends once more and put one pill into my wallet to take later. From January 3rd, 2007, I had no dope to smoke. I suffered from the usual withdrawal symptoms, and all I could think about was how to get some dope so I could feel better. On January the 5th, 2007, there was still nothing to smoke, and I took the ecstasy pill, which I had saved during a meeting with an acquaintance. As a result, the need to get stoned got even greater, and I went to see a friend and we drank some vodka. This only made me want to smoke even more, and I smoked a tobacco joint. This made me so dizzy that my head was reeling, so I went to the bathroom and tried to vomit to get some relief, but it didn't work. I had no desire to be constantly chasing the highs and the dope, and I asked God and Bruno Gröning from deep in my heart for help, and to take it away from me once and for all. Then I curled up on the edge of my friend's bed and fell asleep. The next day, I was still a bit hungover, but I was spontaneously free from any desire for marijuana, and it has lasted. I never smoked another joint again, and never again felt any desire to. Bit by bit, alcohol also faded out of my life. Now I can enjoy life in a good way, and I'm simply happy without any need to be drunk or stoned. I still often give thanks for this second chance in life. A couple of months after my healing, in a letter to God, I expressed the heartfelt wish to find the right profession. A few weeks later, I started the training course to become a state-recognized gymnastics teacher, which I successfully finished in 2009 with a very good grade point average. Since then, I've been working in this profession, and for 2 years, I was even entirely self-employed. In 2006, my mother was also introduced to the teaching of Bruno Gröning and experienced help and healing in body and soul. Our relationship also gradually became warmer and more affectionate. Now I can show and even say how much we love each other. Mostly words aren't even necessary, since we simply feel love for each other and are connected through our hearts. It is so wonderful to walk this beautiful path together and to notice the wholesome changes in our lives. Independently of one another, we did einstellung for my father. I heard from my grandma that my father was free from methadone and that my uncle had gotten him an apartment and a little job as a caretaker. Occasionally, my father and I had contact by phone or most often by text message. I told him about Bruno Gröning and even sent him my introduction booklet, a picture of Bruno Gröning and some success reports. He seemed quite open to it, but didn't follow up. At the end of 2003, I followed the thought to get in touch with my father again. Just a few weeks later, we ended up having a reunion on Boxing Day. I sent him the documentary film about Bruno Gröning, which he has watched twice already, and it really impressed him. I sent him some more pictures of Bruno Gröning, and he hung them up all around his apartment. We have daily contact and do einstellung together on the phone several evenings a week. On the phone, I introduced him to the teaching of Bruno Gröning, and he is on the list for the community which I'm allowed to lead. He still needs a bit of time, but he will definitely come to a community hour for the first time soon. He feels the power as warmth and has received help already. Although my parents are not in direct contact, they've made peace with each other through me. Often I see that a family drama affects many generations, until one generation can come to terms with the past and resolve it. It makes me very happy to know that this has happened within my family with the help of Bruno Gröning's teachings and the power and grace of God.